One of the biggest questions, Justice Chandrachud, facing the Indian judiciary at this moment is the manner in which judges are appointed. We've seen a lot of public backlash from the government of the day, asking for changes in the Collegium system, which the law minister and others in government believe is not transparent, should be more open, shouldn't be like a judges' club. Could you spell out what you think is right and wrong with the Collegium system and the manner in which we appoint our judges to the High Courts and the Supreme Court?
Well, as a Chief Justice of India, I have to take the system as it is given to us today, which is that the Collegium system is the prevalent system for appointing judges. Yes, there have been demands for greater transparency, but I must tell you how we work. For instance, if we are making appointments to the Supreme Court of India, the Chief Justice and the 4 senior-most judges, I have actually 5 because my successor, Chief Justice of India, was not otherwise a part of the Collegium, so mine is a Collegium of 6 judges. We look at the judgments which have been delivered, say, in the last 3 years by the judges of the High Court. And the parameters which we apply for the selection of judges are well defined. First, we look at merit. We look at the professional competence of the judge. We constantly analyze judgments of the High Court judges when they come up in appeal before us. On an average, we are dealing with about 200 cases every week. So those are judgments of the High Courts which are coming up before us, so we assess those judgments. But in the Collegium, we all read the same judgments at the same time. So we circulate the judgments of the High Court judges who are in the zone of consideration. Apart from merit, the second important consideration which we go by is seniority, because after all, this is a service. It's a service. Judges of the High Court are elevated to the Supreme Court. Third important point which we emphasize, that's the need for a broader sense of inclusion. Inclusion in terms of gender, inclusion in terms of the marginalized communities, persons belonging to the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes who must have an equal opportunity to aspire for higher judicial and constitutional offices. Apart from the need for including more gender, having a more gender-inclusive judiciary and the marginalized, we also want to bring more minorities into the court. But that is not at the cost of sacrificing merit. Each one of our colleagues who is chosen because she was a woman is as competent as any of her counterparts, the male judges. Likewise for the minorities or for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they're as competent as any other judges we have chosen in the recent past. The next important factor which we consider is the need to have a broader sense of dispersal of judicial office throughout the country. It shouldn't be that judicial office in the Supreme Court is confined to only 1 or 2 or 3 high courts. So to the extent that it is possible, we try and ensure that we give adequate representation to different segments, different high courts, different states, different regions in the country when we are making appointments to the Supreme Court. We also consult judges who have rooted through that High Court and who are judges of the Supreme Courts. For instance, my parent High Court was the High Court of Judicature at Bombay. I was Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court for 3 years. So when a judge from Bombay has to be appointed, I am consulted. If I have to be appointing a judge from the Allahabad High Court, of course now I'm the Chief Justice, but when I was a puisne judge, I would be consulted for making, and judges give extremely transparent and clear opinions on what they feel. In the High Courts, it's even broader because the High Courts are looking at lawyers who are fit for appointment, and there are 2 sources of recruitment to the High Court, the district judiciary, and the whole track record of the district judiciary is maintained on paper. You have the annual confidential reports. You have a whole dossier on each judge which is developed as they progress through the service. When lawyers are to be appointed, the same procedure is followed, and there is an equal involvement of various stakeholders in the system. For instance, once the High Court Collegium makes its recommendation, the file is processed at 2 levels. It comes to the Supreme Court, the Government of India, and the Government of the state, so that the Chief Minister of the state, the Governor of the state responds to the appointment which is recommended by the High Court Collegium. At the same time, the file is processed by the Intelligence Bureau to see if there are any adverse intelligence inputs. The file is then, it goes to the Union Government in the Ministry of Law and Justice. The Department of Justice sends the file to us with its annotations. We then consult our judges, after which the file is sent back to the government, and then goes on to the Prime Minister's office and then to the President of India.